We've seen injuries tear down so many great careers in baseball throughout the years, and recently players like Mike Trout and Christian Yelich have been greatly impacted by injuries that have kept them from producing like they were earlier in their careers. And if it keeps happening, we're going to be asking the question, what if, when it comes to their careers? And unfortunately, as baseball fans, we have had very many examples that we can attach this question to throughout baseball history. Ken Griffey Jr. is another example, despite still having a historic career. But one of the guys that you may not think of all that much when you ask that question comes from the late 90s and early 2000s Oakland Athletics teams. That guy is Eric Chavez. I think he should be much more well known these days, and he could be more well known. You know the movie Moneyball? The movie about the Athletics not having any good players but putting a formula together to create a really cheap and effective roster that mostly got on base? Well, Eric Chavez was a part of those teams. You just never heard his name because he was a good player that did way more than just get on base. Now, I love the movie Moneyball, but this just happens to be something that the movie leaves out, which does make for a better story, I will admit. Anyway, I'm ranting. This video is supposed to be about Eric Chavez. In 1996, the Oakland Athletics drafted Eric Chavez, a third baseman out of high school, with the 10th pick of the first round of the draft. And he was about to show them why they made a very, very good decision. Chavez would get his first taste of pro ball in the next year in high A and would go on to slash .271 with a .321 on base and a .444 slugging percentage for an OPS of .765. He hit 18 home runs and drove in an even 100 runs. And this was as a teenager over a full season playing third base. That's a very respectable first season as a teenager. And if you think this year is good, his next full season in the minors was a spectacle. He improved nearly every aspect of his game at higher levels in the minors. Across AA and AAA, he smashed 33 bombs, driving in 126 runs, and every part of his slash line improved, which led to an increase of over 200 points to his OPS from his previous year. It was such a good year that he won the minor league player of the year. And even though the A's had no playoff hopes, this was enough for them to call him up to the majors in September of that season. No service time manipulation here. He would take over the starting third base role as soon as he arrived. And this was an immediate upgrade over Mike Blowers, who was playing third base for the A's at the time. He was one of the weaker spots in Oakland's lineup with an OPS plus of just 81 on the year. Chavez would only get 45 at-bats during his cup of coffee in the majors, but he hit over 300 and had an OPS plus of 110 and didn't make a single error in the field. In his short time, he was already making an impact with the big club. The only thing he didn't do in his cup of coffee was show the power. He didn't hit a home run of those 45 at-bats, although it is a small sample size. He showed enough promise that he was going to open up with the team next year as their starting third baseman. It would kind of take him a little bit to get the power going as well, and he got off to a pretty slow start overall. At the end of April, he was hitting only .214 with an OPS of 632. It wouldn't be until the middle of May where he hit his first career home run off of LaTroy Hawkins. But he would turn things around, and he ended up hitting 13 home runs in 115 games in his rookie season. This wasn't a bad year for Chavez, but a little bit more was left to be desired. He finished the year with an OPS plus of only 98, which is a little bit below league average. The next year was a ton better though. This year, Chavez would establish himself as one of the bigger threats in the Athletics lineup. He would hit 26 home runs, which is double from his first year. He'd also hit .277 with an .850 OPS and a .117 OPS plus, which was second on the team for starters to only Jason Giambi. He also made a little bit of history by being the first player to hit for the cycle in the Oakland Coliseum June 21st against the Orioles. And he also hit an inside the park home run off of Roger Clemens in Yankee Stadium later that season. He was showing off a bit of flair in his early days. In the next couple years, you would see Chavez really come into his own. And as he was progressing, so were the Oakland Athletics. The A's won 87 games in 1999, which was his rookie year. The next season, they won 91 games. And in 2001, they won 102 games, which was the last year that Jason Giambi was a part of the team. This was the year right before the Moneyball year. And even though Jason Giambi was runner-up in MVP voting, Eric Chavez was second on the team and war right behind him with 6.1. He also just continued to improve with the power, hitting over 30 home runs and driving in over 100 runs for the first time in his career in 2001. He would also take home his first Gold Glove. And keep in mind, he is still only 23 at this point, and he's already doing this kind of damage and taking home these kind of awards in the majors. He's already a major threat in the Oakland Athletics lineup and a big reason why they are doing so well. His age 24 season was the famous Oakland Athletics Moneyball year, the year where the A's famously lost Jason Giambi, Johnny Damon, and Jason Isringhausen. And despite never being brought up in the movie Moneyball, Chavez was a huge reason for their success, among many other reasons that we didn't hear about in that movie. The Oakland Athletics would go on to win 103 games. He would go on to tie Miguel Tejada for the team high in home runs. And I should also mention that the Moneyball Athletics had the AL MVP this year. Miguel Tejada was the MVP, and Eric Chavez tied him in home runs. You never heard heard that from Moneyball. Chavez slashed 275, 348, and 515 for an OPS of 860. He won another Gold Glove, and it was his first year where he received MVP votes, coming in 14th place. He also took home his first Silver Slugger. Eric would go on to receive MVP votes for the next 4 years, as well as winning Gold Gloves in each of these years. And from 2001 to 2005, he averaged exactly 30 home runs and 100 RBI per year. He was having a fantastic career, and this would actually lead the Oakland Athletics to give him a big contract extension just before the 2004 season. They gave him a 6-year contract worth $66 million, the biggest in franchise history at the time. And if anyone had earned it, it was Chavez. He had such a great early start to his career and had been super consistent the last several years. It looked like he was on pace to have a special career and potentially be a Hall of Famer. Through his age 27 season, he had already hit a respectable 190 home runs, driven in 644 runs, and had a career 275 batting average with an OPS of 846. And to put this in perspective, since the beginning of the divisional era, Eric Chavez ranks 10th among third basemen that have played at least 500 games at third base through their age 27 season. Yeah, he's not at the top of the list. He's not top 5 or top 3 or anything like that, but there are some impressive names that he's in front of, including Wade Boggs, Chipper Jones, and Jose Ramirez. And with that same criteria, he ranks 4th in home runs, behind Manny Machado, Rafael Devers, and Adrian Beltre. Some impressive names right there. So there's absolutely no reason to believe that he couldn't be on pace to have one of the better careers at third base that we've seen recently. But unfortunately, things don't always work out the way we want. And in 2006, we'd start to see him fall off a little bit. It was his age 28 season, and he would hit a career low 241 with 22 home runs and 72 RBI, with his worst OPS plus since his first full season in the bigs. He would still win his 6th straight Gold Glove, which is extremely impressive. Not many players have won 6 Gold Gloves, let alone 6 straight Gold Gloves. In fact, only 4 other players in baseball history at third base have won 6 straight Gold Gloves. That would be Buddy Bell, Nolan Arenado, Mike Schmidt, and Brooks Robinson. That is some good company to be a part of. But sadly, this would be the last year that Eric Chavez would win a Gold Glove. In 2007, he would put up a similar OPS with 752, but his OPS plus was only 101, just around league average. His strikeouts jumped a ton, he walked a whole lot less, and more importantly, he only played 90 games. He spent the last 2 months of 2007 on the injured list. He'd been dealing with back discomfort and shoulder discomfort and needed to get surgery on his right shoulder in September, and then later in October, he would have surgery again on his lower back. But he was expected to be back for spring training. However, despite having a full offseason to heal from surgeries and injuries, he would begin the 2008 season on the injured list due to lower back pain. He didn't make his season debut until May 28th of this year, and when he was playing, he wasn't very good. From May 28th through July 1st, he only hit 247 with an on-base percentage below 300 and an OPS below 700. He only hit 2 home runs during the time too. And on July 2nd, he'd be placed on the injured list again with right shoulder inflammation. And he wouldn't return for the rest of the season. He wasn't getting any younger either. This was his age 30 season, and injuries have kept him off the field for the majority of this season and last season. And 2009 was even worse. He only played 8 total games, and once again, he didn't do very well in his short sample size. He had 3 total hits, 1 extra base hit, and his OPS plus was -30 in those games. If you were an Oakland A's fan at the time, you had to start thinking like, is this the last we've seen of an effective Eric Chavez? The next year was the last year of his contract, and he would only go on to play 33 games, once again being out most of the year for injury. And I sound like a broken record, but once again, he was not very effective in those games played. After his contract was up, the Oakland Athletics would part ways with Chavez, and it was in serious doubt whether we'd ever see him on a major league field again. However, in February of 2011, Chavez and the Yankees would agree to a minor league contract, and if Chavez made the team out of spring training, he would get $1.5 million. And if he did make the team, Chavez could earn an additional $4 million in bonuses based on playing time. But even if Chavez was healthy, it didn't look like he was going to get a lot of opportunity for playing time regardless, because Alex Rodriguez was at third base at the time. But against all odds, he played more games this season than he did in the previous 2 years combined. He played in 58 total games for the Yankees this year, and even though the power was gone, he still played a very solid third base for them when he was on the field. That's something that he had never forgotten. Even though the power was gone, he provided a lot of value in that regard. And this would earn him another contract with the Yankees the next year. It was a guaranteed 1-year deal for $900,000 with another additional $3 million in playing time incentives, very similar to his previous deal. And he would actually have a little bit of resurgence in his age 34 season. He would play over 100 games for the first time since 2006, hitting 281 with a 348 on base percentage and a 496 slugging percentage percentage for an OPS of 845 and an OPS plus of 125. I don't think anyone expected this out of Eric Chavez at the plate, and it was such a welcoming sight. The power looked like it returned, even for just a little bit. And this little resurgence was enough to get him a couple more years in the bigs with Arizona, where he played in 2013 and 2014. But those would be the final 2 seasons of his career, and Arizona would be the final team he played for. But when it was all said and done, it's still a very respectable career. He finished with 38.3 total WAR. He had 260 home runs, a career batting average of 268, 902 career RBI, with a career OPS of 818 and a 115 career OPS plus, all while winning 6 Gold Gloves, receiving MVP votes, and taking home 1 Silver Slugger. What blows my mind the most, though, is that he wasn't an all-star one time, not once. All in all, I think Eric had a very good career, but with how it started compared to how it ended, it is almost impossible for me not to think that it could have gone completely different if he had stayed healthy. He was on a tremendous pace, and he could have been an all-time great, and I will always look back on his career and those early athletics teams fondly. It's just a shame that injuries ruined what could have been a great Hall of Fame career.